I'm Better Call Chad, and let's talk about aerations. Before we do, I have a new website, bettercallchad.com, where you can schedule online consultations, email me there, and even check out some of my DIY lawn kit. Let's get right into this video. For aeration, I want to make it clear we're talking about core aeration. Core aeration is what's going to pull the plugs out of the ground. And yes, even if you have sandy soil, you still do need aerations. Not always need them, but they can be extremely beneficial, especially if you're dealing with compaction. Now, springtime is the best time to do a core aeration, especially when it comes around that spring fertilization schedule. To loosen up that soil, get food in it, it can really, really benefit your lawn throughout the summer. Now, for clay and loamy soils, those are more commonly what needs aerations. I recommend doing a spring aeration every year or two, depending on how much clay your soil has and how much moisture it's holding. And now for sandy soils, it'd be good to do an aeration every 2 to 4 years, just to keep that soil loosened up. And that's how I like everyone to think of an aeration. It's like a farmer tilling their field. Every year they need to till the field, get oxygen back into the soil and mix it up. Because without doing that, you get a very bad, poor soil and can be very dusty and hydrophobic, which means it won't retain liquids. And that's pretty much what a core aeration does, is it's tilling your soil underneath, but in a bunch of small holes because we don't want to tear up the lawn. So we're keeping as much of the lawn as we can and loosening up the soil underneath as much as possible. And it's very important to do for soils. Again, sandy soils don't need it as much, but don't get the misconception that you don't need it at all. One of the biggest things is dealing with compaction. That is the main reason for needing an aeration. If you have areas of your lawn where there's grass, but it's growing very low and flat and not thick and fluffy and not at a very fast rate where you almost don't need to mow it that much, even in the summertime, that is compaction. I have a whole video on compaction if you want more detail about it. But that is the main reason for an aeration. And that soil's not gonna uncompact until you do an aeration and loosen that soil up. So you will need a core aeration if you have those areas, and a lot of people do, even with sandy soil. Now, what I recommend when you're dealing with those areas of compaction, you need to do an aeration annually, every spring, until those areas are not compact anymore. And then that's when you do it every few years to avoid compaction from happening. But now the benefits of aeration don't just stop at compaction. That is the main reason, and that will give you the visual difference. Because especially if you already have a pretty good looking lawn and you do an aeration, you won't see much of a visual difference. It's like a person taking their vitamins where you don't really see a difference, but you feel better. You're not gonna see much of a difference if your lawn's not compacted and already decently healthy, but your grass is gonna feel a lot better. Now, the other benefits of an aeration are gonna be promoting a healthy root system. When we pull those plugs out and loosen up the soil, it's gonna give the root system expansion to grow a lot quicker and easier because the soil is looser. And it's gonna help also with nutrient uptake. Again, those nutrients and water have to move through the soil. When that soil gets very crushed and compacted, it's hard for anything to move through it. So by allowing that soil to be loosened up, you allow nutrients and water to move through quicker. Now, this can also help with thatch buildup. If you already have thatch, it won't get rid of your existing thatch, but it can help prevent thatch from building up. Now, if you seed your lawn, which most of us here don't, it will definitely help and improve seeding, but most of us warm season people won't be doing that anyway. And also, it will really help with runoff and puddling. If you have hydrophobic soil, that can happen from compaction and exposure to sun, you get a lot of that water runoff. So you'll be wasting water and missing a lot of that rainfall. Or if you have areas that puddle and sit and don't drain, doing an aeration can allow that to drain through. And one of the most important things is just simply getting oxygen into the soil. Your soil is its own ecosystem. There's good bacteria in there, living organisms that makes it all work. And then you have dead material breaking down to feed those organisms, feed the soil. But what everything needs to live is oxygen. Even fish in a pond need oxygen to survive. So those microbials that live in your lawn that transfer the nutrient to the plant need oxygen to live. It needs oxygen to break down dead material quicker, all of that. And when your soil compacts, less oxygen moves through it, which slows down the whole process, and it can really destroy that ecosystem in the soil. So by doing that aeration, just alone getting the oxygen into the soil, it can help that ecosystem thrive, that microbial, those nutrients, that's what kind of blends everything together I talked about with nutrient root system and all that. It's getting oxygen into the soil. It's extremely beneficial, and that's why I even say it's good to do it on a preventative basis, because you can never lose with adding more oxygen and loosening up your soil. You can only benefit, especially doing it at the right time in the spring. So this has been about core aerations and when to do them. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments, and check out my website at bettercallchad.com. Everyone have a great rest of your day.